If you want to understand America, don't watch the news. Don't read the headlines. Don't listen to the pundits who have never set foot in the country they claim to understand. Go to a tailgate. That's what a group of European football fans discovered when they arrived in the United States for the 2026 World Cup. They came expecting to mock the American way of sports. They came expecting to laugh at the absurdity of people grilling meat in parking lots hours before kickoff. They left begging to take this tradition home with them. The European fans had heard the rumors. They'd seen the memes. They'd watched the videos of Americans in face paint, standing next to massive trucks, cooking enough food to feed a small army. And they had laughed. How primitive, they thought. How excessive. How utterly American. But then they experienced it for themselves. And everything changed. The first tailgate they encountered was in Dallas, Texas. The fans had arrived at the stadium hours early, as Europeans do, expecting to find a few pubs nearby where they could have a quiet beer before the match. Instead, they found a city. A temporary city erected in a parking lot, thousands of people, hundreds of vehicles, music blasting from speakers, smoke rising from grills, flags waving, children running, adults laughing, and the smell. That smell. Barbecue, burgers, sausages, grilled corn, smoke and seasoning, and something that made their mouths water before they'd even stepped out of their rental car. Is this all for a football match? One English fan asked, staring at the chaos before him. His American host smiled. This isn't even a big one, the American said. Just wait. The British fan didn't believe him. He couldn't believe him. Because what he was seeing was already beyond anything he'd ever experienced at a sporting event back home. In England, you show up, you go to the pub, you have a drink, you go to the match, you go home. In America, the match is almost incidental. The tailgate is the main event. The fans from France were even more skeptical. The French had come with their baguettes and their cheese, and their carefully curated picnic baskets. They were prepared to demonstrate to the Americans what real food looked like. They didn't stand a chance. The first American they encountered was a man named James, a Texan who had arrived at 6 a.m. to secure his spot. His truck was a monument to excess, a massive pickup with a flatbed attached, 2 grills, a portable generator, a television mounted on the side, and more food than the French had ever seen outside a supermarket. "Welcome to Texas," James said, handing each French fan a plate. The plate was loaded, and not with the dainty, Instagram-worthy portions they were used to. This was a statement, a slab of brisket, a sausage link, a pile of coleslaw, a piece of cornbread, a scoop of beans, and a side of potato salad that could have been a meal on its own. The French fans looked at each other. They didn't know where to start. They didn't know how to start. They'd never seen food presented with such unabashed confidence. One of them, a man named Pierre, tentatively took a bite of the brisket. His eyes widened. He took another bite. He stopped chewing and just stared at the meat in his hands, as if it had personally insulted him by being so unexpectedly delicious. What is this?" he finally managed. James smiled. "Brisket, smoked for 18 hours. 18 hours? Low and slow. That's the secret." Pierre took another bite. He couldn't stop. The skepticism had vanished, replaced by something approaching reverence. "I don't understand," he said, shaking his head. "We have barbecue in France. We have grilled meats, but this is something else entirely. This is art." The other French fans nodded in agreement. They'd arrived prepared to mock American food. They'd found themselves converted. The British fans were having a similar crisis of identity. They'd expected the food to be mediocre. They'd expected the atmosphere to be cringeworthy. They'd expected to be embarrassed for the Americans, who clearly took themselves far too seriously when it came to what was, at the end of the day, just a parking lot party. But then they started playing cornhole. "Cornhole?" one British fan asked, raising an eyebrow. "What on earth is cornhole?" An American explained the rules. You throw a beanbag at a raised board with a hole in it. If you get it in the hole, you score points. Simple, silly, perfectly American. The British fan tried it. He missed. He tried again. He missed again. The Americans around him laughed, but not cruelly. They encouraged him. They gave him tips. They cheered when he finally made it. It was, he later admitted, the most fun he'd had in years. "That's the thing I didn't understand," he said later. When I saw videos of Americans tailgating, I thought it was ridiculous. Grown men playing a children's game in a car park? But when you're there, when you're part of it, you realize it's not about the game, it's about the community. The community. That word came up again and again in the interviews. The fans from Germany, Spain, and Italy all used the same word: community. In Europe, football is tribal. It's us versus them. It's rivalries that have lasted generations. It's bitterness, and sometimes violence. In America, the atmosphere was different. Rival fans sat together. They ate together. They drank together. They laughed together. A fan in a Germany jersey high-fived a fan in an England jersey. A fan from Spain shared his beer with a fan from Italy. "We have nothing like this," one German fan said, shaking his head in disbelief. "Nothing. We don't even understand it. How can people who are about to compete against each other be so friendly?" An American overheard him and smiled. "We're not competing," the American said. "We're celebrating. The match is just an excuse." That line stuck with the German fan. The match is just an excuse. It was a revelation, a complete inversion of everything he thought he knew about sports. In Europe, the match is the only thing that matters. In America, the match is just the punctuation mark at the end of a much longer sentence. The food continued to flow. Someone fired up a new grill and started cooking burgers. Someone else opened a cooler filled with drinks. Someone else brought out a tray of something called jalapeno poppers, which the European fans approached with caution and devoured with enthusiasm. It was overwhelming. It was excessive. It was wonderful. The Scottish fans, who had arrived ready to be cynical, were the last to break. They'd spent years mocking Americans for their loudness, their friendliness, their obsession with sports they didn't understand. But as they stood in that parking lot, surrounded by strangers who had become friends, eating food that had been cooked specifically for them, they felt something shift. "Back home," one of them said, "we wouldn't do this. We wouldn't even think to do this. We'd go to the pub, stay with our own group, and that would be it. We wouldn't invite people we just met to share our food. We wouldn't welcome strangers into our celebrations." He paused. "I don't know if it's because Americans are more open or because we're more closed. But I do know that this is special. This is something we don't have. And now that I've seen it, I'm not sure why we don't have it." The games continued. Cornhole, beer pong, ladder toss. Stupid, silly, wonderful games that had no purpose except to make people laugh. The European fans joined in. They were terrible at first. They kept missing, they kept losing, and they kept laughing. "I don't think I've laughed this much in years," one Spanish fan admitted. "Maybe ever. Back home, we take everything so seriously. Football is serious. Life is serious. Everything is serious. But here, people just want to have a good time." A good time. It seemed so simple, so obvious, and yet it was something the European fans had forgotten how to do. The transformation didn't happen all at once. It was gradual. They'd arrived with their skepticism and their prejudices. They'd spent the first few hours looking for things to criticize. The music was too loud. The portions were too large. The enthusiasm was too much. But then they found themselves tapping their feet to the music. Then they found themselves reaching for a second helping. Then they found themselves smiling. "I came here to mock," one English fan later admitted. "I came here to film content about how ridiculous Americans are, and instead, I ended up having the best day of my life. I've been to 100 matches. I've never had an experience like this." He wasn't alone. Across the parking lot, French fans were comparing recipes with American grill masters. German fans were learning how to play cornhole. Italian fans were helping themselves to another round of food. The skepticism had vanished. In its place was something else entirely: respect. "I thought I knew what America was," one French fan said. "I thought I understood it. But I was wrong. I was so wrong. The America I saw in the media is not the America I experience today." The media. That word kept coming up. "America is not dying," another fan insisted. "I don't know what the news is talking about. Look at these people. Look at their energy, their optimism, their sense of community. A dying country doesn't throw parties like this. A dying country doesn't welcome strangers like this." He gestured at the chaos around him. "This is not a country in decline. This is a country that knows how to enjoy life. This is a country that knows how to welcome people. And we, back home, have been sold a very different story. The match began, and the fans headed into the stadium. But something had changed. They weren't just there to watch football anymore. They were there because they wanted to be part of this. Because they'd experienced something they couldn't explain. And they wanted more. The match itself was fantastic. The stadium was incredible. The atmosphere was electric. But the fans kept coming back to the tailgate. "Does this happen every time?" one Spanish fan asked. Is this normal?" An American nodded. "Every time. Every match. It's what we do." The Spanish fan shook his head in disbelief. "In Spain, we don't even talk to the opposing fans. We sit separately. We treat each other like enemies. You make friends with the people you're about to compete against. I don't understand it, but I want to. I want to understand it." The tailgate continued after the match. The American fans had been doing this for years. They'd made it an art form. They'd perfected it. And the European fans were eager students. "Teach us," one English fan said. "Teach us how to do this. We want to take this back home." The Americans were delighted. They showed them how to set up a tailgate, how to choose the right spot, how to bring enough food, how to create an atmosphere. It was a lesson in more than just logistics. It was a lesson in culture. "You have to understand," one American said. "It's not about the food. It's not about the games. It's about the people. It's about creating a space where strangers can become friends. It's about building a community." The European fans nodded. They understood. They'd spent their lives in Europe surrounded by people who looked like them, talked like them, supported the same teams, shared the same history. And yet, they'd never felt this sense of community. This openness. This willingness to welcome the stranger. "Maybe that's what we've lost," one Scottish fan mused. "Maybe we've become so closed off, so tribal, that we forgot how to just enjoy being together. Maybe we forgot that sports are supposed to bring people together, not drive them apart." The sun began to set over the parking lot. The grills were cooling down. The music was fading. The fans were packing up. But something lingered. The European fans had arrived as critics. They'd arrived as skeptics. They'd arrived with their prejudices and their preconceptions. They were leaving with something else. They were leaving with a new understanding of what America actually was. "I'm going to do this when I get home," one French fan said. "I'm going to find a parking lot, and I'm going to grill meat, and I'm going to invite everyone I know, and I'm going to show them what I learned today." He smiled. "The French are not known for being welcoming to strangers. Maybe it's time we learned to be." The media had told the fans that America was dangerous, divided, declining. But the tailgate had told them something different. It had shown them a country that was open, welcoming, and full of life. It had shown them that America wasn't dying. It was thriving. And it had shown them that their own cultures had something to learn from this strange, loud, excessive, wonderful tradition. As the fans drove back to their hotels, they talked about what they'd experienced. They talked about the food, the games, the people, the atmosphere. But mostly, they talked about the feeling. "Back home," one English fan said, "we go to the pub and we stay in our groups. We don't mix. We don't welcome. We just exist. But here, they invited us into their celebrations. They shared their food with us. They made us feel like family." He paused. "And now I want to do the same. I want to bring this back to England. I want to show people what I learned." The fans returned home with new perspectives and full stomachs. But they returned with something more valuable. A new understanding of America. A new understanding of community. And a new understanding of what it means to truly welcome someone. The European fans had laughed at American tailgates. But they'd also been transformed by them. And now, they were begging to take this tradition home. One of them later said something that captured the entire experience. "We came to mock," he said. "We left wanting to be more like them." That's not something I ever expected to say, but it's the truth. So here's the question that remains. What do you believe about a culture you've never experienced firsthand? What do you believe about a tradition you've only seen through screens and headlines? And how much of that belief was shaped by people who profit from your prejudice? The European fans came to America to laugh at tailgates. They left begging to take them home. They discovered that reality is always more complex than stereotypes. And they had to admit that everything they'd believed was wrong. Not because they were stupid, but because they'd been fed a version of reality that was never designed to be accurate. It was designed to keep them watching. The fans returned home with new perspectives and new traditions to share. And they returned with something even more valuable. A simple truth. What you see on the news is not the world. It's a version of the world designed to sell you something. And if you want to know the truth, you have to go experience it for yourself. The tailgate wasn't just a party in a parking lot. It was a mirror. It reflected back the best of what America has to offer. And it showed the European fans that they could bring that best home with them. Ask yourself, what have you been told about a culture you've never experienced? And more importantly, what would you discover if you actually showed up? If this story changed how you see the world, hit that like button. Share it with someone who still believes the old narrative. Subscribe for the next truth decoding documentary. Because next time, we're looking at the American customs Europeans mocked, until they secretly wish they had them at home. The truth is stranger than the headlines, and it's waiting for you to find it. This documentary presents first-hand experiences and observations from international visitors. Individual experiences may vary, and the content is not intended to minimize legitimate challenges or issues within any society.